Apologize for the delay. This committee will now come to order. We do not have a quorum present. We'll start by reading into the, first I want to announce that number 4 will receive and file item 4. And then we'll bring up items 1, 2, and 3 together for all appointments.
Item number 1, communication from the Mayor and City Ethics Commission report relative to the appointment of Mr. Fernando Villa to the Board of Commissioners for the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles for the term ending June 6, 2016. Item number 2, communication from the Mayor and City Ethics Commission report relative to the appointment of Francisco De Vivo to the Industrial Development Authority Board of Directors for the term ending June 30th, 2015. Item number 3, communication from the Mayor and City Ethics Commission report relative to the reappointment of Ms. Ramona Ripston to the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority Commission for the term ending June 30th, 2017. And items number 1, 2, and 3 are all scheduled for council September 19th, today.
Okay, thank you very much. Can the appointees please come forward? Hello, Ms. Ripston. Thank you very much for your service. You've been serving the city for quite some time on various commissions, and I want to thank you so much for your service and let you know that some of my colleagues did say that they may have some questions. Otherwise, I would have waived it from committee. But at this moment in time, I personally don't have any questions. Is there anything you'd like to share with us?
Thank you, Councilman Cardenas. I've learned a lot. I think it's been a good appointment, and I think we've made much progress on the Homeless Commission. So I thank you for moving me on to the next round.
Thank you. And then also, I think that we all recognize that we have a lot more work to do when it comes to our homeless population in Los Angeles. I think that when you have a city with so many resources and yet at the same time we're blessed with the weather and the conditions that we have, I think there's always going to be opportunity for people to be without, and therefore if they're homeless, Los Angeles is probably not the worst place to be if you are in fact homeless. So I think that issue is probably never going to curtail to zero, but it is something that we are making tremendous progress on. And I think that little by little, we're having better communication with the county, we're having better communication with the federal government, et cetera. And so we are making progress. And again, thank you for your service, and I hope that we can make tremendous progress in the near future.
Thank you. The one problem with the homeless situation in Los Angeles is that we all know that the best way of ending homelessness is housing with services. And unfortunately, in Los Angeles, we don't have enough housing. Although a recent report shows that we're doing quite well as compared to some other cities. I think the commission is running well these days. It's very effective, but there'll always be that problem, not enough housing stock in Los Angeles.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And in my personal opinion, with the elimination of Community Redevelopment Authority, I think that was really a step in the wrong direction for the state of California, and it certainly is going to cause us not to be able to continue at the pace that we have when it comes to actually providing ultimately housing for everybody, including homeless. Thank you. Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Cardenas. I'm Francisco De Vivo.
So a reappointment as well. I mean, thank you for your service, and I hope that you're not deterred from doing this again and again and again. We need all the volunteers we can get, and we really appreciate it. I know the pay's not that good when it comes to dollars, but I hope that you're finding it rewarding in other ways.
I am, Mr. Cardenas. Thank you very much.
So both of you, I'd like to thank you for your volunteerism and your commitment to the city of Los Angeles. If you get a chance, seriously, if you get a chance to ever talk to young people, can you encourage them to think about and notice that volunteerism is something that we cherish in the city and something that you obviously have mastered, but if you could actually share that with young people so that we can instill that in them so that they can actually take the seats in the future. Okay,
Sure.
thank you very much.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. So with that, what we'll do is, as a recommendation of the chair, we'll move these 3 items forward, and they'll go to council next. Do we have placeholders on the council? Okay, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we'll go to item number 5.
Item number 5, Reyes-Labange motion relative to authorization to negotiate and execute a lease agreement with the Arroyo Vista Family Health Center for a period not to exceed 15 years for the city-owned facility located at 6,000 North Figueroa Street to enable Arroyo Vista to secure a $500,000 federal grant to improve the facility and continue providing healthcare services to low-income residents and related actions.
Okay. Also, I apologize to the public. Is there anybody here to speak on items 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? I did not have any cards before me, but I want to officially notice that public comment was made available on items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Seeing no one here for comment on those items, public comment on those items are now closed. With that, we will go ahead and it'll be a recommendation of the chair of this committee to approve the motion, move it forward to council. Okay, now we move forward to item number 6.
Item number 6, motion Buscaino Englander relative to amending the LA Municipal Code, Section 41.27C, to include the prohibition of all alcoholic beverages being consumed in the public spaces on any housing authority property not within a leased or rented residence.
Is there somebody here from the housing department who can answer some questions? And also, I may have some questions that might involve the city attorney. It appears to me that what this motion would do is to clarify and/or make it so that if someone is in a public housing complex, as long as they're in their dwelling, which is still a castle, public subsidized or not, they are allowed to legally consume alcohol, obviously, if they're of age, et cetera, they can consume alcohol within their unit. However, today, it is not clear as to whether or not they're violating any federal, state, or local ordinances or laws if they are consuming alcohol outside of their unit, yet on the premises. Is that something that's going on today? It's not abundantly clear as to whether or not they're in any violation if they're on the premises of a housing complex and they're consuming alcohol.
You want to? Sure. Mary Dennis, City Attorney's Office. Councilman, what I've been informed by LAPD officers who have attempted to cite people for drinking in public on housing authority property is that they are complaining that the property is posted private property and that they are not therefore in public. LAPD is aware of this. The prosecutors have informed me that this creates a difficulty in court in the sense that we now have to argue factually each and every time these sites are given, and it makes it less likely that our resources are being used efficiently. This amendment is simply to clarify the law to make it very clear that if you're not in your residence on housing authority property and you're drinking, you are in public property for purposes of enforcement of this section.
No, this does not apply to a privately owned subsidized housing complex.
Correct.
For example, if you have developer ABC who happens to have built a project, has Section 8 housing there, et cetera, and say it's 100% Section 8 or subsidized housing, but it's privately owned, not owned by a municipality, not owned by a government, this ordinance does not apply to that property.
Well, it applies in the general sense that drinking in a public area, so common area.
But I'm talking about that private property because the actual property, the territory, the dirt, the real estate is owned by company, literally ABC company. And that company happens to have 50 units of housing on that property. and all 50 units are in some fashion subsidized by the government, does this ordinance apply to that privately owned property?
This particular amendment does not apply to that particular property.
Okay, so this applies to where the actual dirt is owned by, say, the county, the city, et cetera, and it is 100% housing project, subsidized housing project. This ordinance applies to that dirt.
This amendment clarifies that property that is under the control and owned by the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles is the property that is public for purposes of enforcement of this
Okay.
statute.
Thank you. So even though the Housing Authority might have some semblance of a relationship or a responsibility with some of the occupants on the example that I gave earlier of a privately owned property, this does not apply. Because in that case, it is not owned by the Housing Authority.
This amendment doesn't apply, correct?
Okay, got it. I just want to make sure because it's one thing for us to enforce what needs to be enforced in the appropriate place. It's another thing for us to be ambiguous again with the public as to whether or not it applies to that particular tenant, that particular housing project. Now, as far as we can tell, does the Housing Authority instruct its tenants that they shall not drink alcohol outside of their units on the premises?
This, Ken Simmons from the Housing Authority. Now, we haven't taken a lot of action on that because of this ambiguity of how this property is listed in the ordinance. Once this ordinance would be written and approved by the council, we would then make sure we notify all the tenants to tell them and make it very clear what the rules are, where the lines of demarcation are.
Okay, but we're not necessarily being that clear about it yesterday as we are going to be tomorrow, should this pass.
You're right,
Okay,
absolutely.
got it. Well, that's what matters to me the most. Obviously, there's some ambiguity. It's causing a heartburn not only for the tenants, but for the police authority, et cetera. So now, going forward, we will strengthen the language to be concurrent and clearer as this ordinance will make it.
You're right.
Okay. Any
Good
comment?
morning, council member. I'm Veronica De La Cruz. I'm one of the neighborhood prosecutors assigned to Southeast Division Olympic Station and also Harbor Division. Southeast officers approached me about this issue, and we've been working with our civil counterparts to explain what LAPD officers have been facing and the ambiguity and the problems with prosecution of this quality of life issue that is very prevalent within our developments.
Okay. And my last question is this. I'm assuming that we are not setting precedent as far as housing authorities are handled around the country. This is something that ordinances like the one that we have before us are in fact in place in many places throughout the country.
Now, I don't know if we really have done that research. We really focused on the issue that we had in front of us.
Okay. Before we go to council, I want to make sure that we can confirm that we're not setting precedent, because if we are setting precedent, then I think that we might be setting ourselves up for one of those lawyers who loves to sue municipalities and make it that landmark case, and there we go, losing a few $1 million, putting it in the pockets of some lawyer who, quite frankly, I'm not very fond of. So if before we get to council, if you could please, I'm positive that other jurisdictions, especially the larger cities, have similar ordinances like this. I'm positive. I have no verification of it, so if you could please, do that, I would really appreciate it.
We'll confirm that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, thank you for your work.
Thank you.
So with that, is there anybody here to speak publicly on item number 6? We're on item number 6. I have no public comment cards before me on item number 6. Public comment on item number 6 is now closed. With that, it will be the recommendation of the chair to move the item over to council for approval. Next, we go to our last item on the agenda, which is item number 7.
Item number 7, motion Cardenas Huiza relative to authorization to reprogram $33,440.05 in Community Development Block Grant, American Recovery and Reinvestment Act funds to the existing public improvement project in California Hospital Corridor, reappropriate CDD administrative costs to the current fiscal year, and reappropriate funds to various ARA-funded projects. This item is scheduled for council September 21st, and CDD has also submitted an amending report.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there anybody here to speak on item number 7? Anybody here to speak on item number 7? We're in item number 7. I see no public comment cards before me on item number 7. Public comment on item number 7 is now closed. Is there anybody here from CDD who can answer some questions? Can you briefly explain to us what's before us?
Good morning, Councilmember. Janet West, CDD. Yes, the CDD has submitted a request to amend the language, the motion before you. These are requests to reprogram some funds from CDBG ARA projects in order to fully expend the funds on local programs prior to the end of this month, which is the end of the ARA program for the city. And the difference between the motion that was originally submitted is that subsequent to that time, the CDD was informed there'd be 3 additional projects that would have some savings with them prior to September 30, and we wanted to add those funds, change the amount to the reprogramming action. So the difference is that instead of $33,440, we'd increase the funds available for transfer to the California Hospital Project to $216,877.58. And instead of just 2 projects that had identified savings, the Youth Employment Program and the CDD admin line item, there were 3 additional projects that identified savings that would occur: the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice, the CAO office, and Lansett Industrial Park. So we're requesting that this be adopted as amended so that we can fully expend all the funds locally on projects instead of returning to the federal government.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's exactly how I understood it. So with that, what we'll do is, as the chair, I'll recommend that we amend the motion and send it to council for approval.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair. What we have before us is now the CDD report.
Yes.
So we would be adopting or approving the recommendation of the CDD report.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. That concludes the items scheduled for this agenda for today's committee. We are now on general public comment. Is there anybody here for general public comment? This is the Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee. Okay. See no one come forward. General public comment is closed. This committee is now adjourned.